but it's the cash conversion cycle of 9 to 11 months. So if you come into this thinking, I'm going to close a deal in 6 months with one cold caller, you are going to quit. So this week, I wanted to bring on Libby, who has, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the school community, she has been posting all these deals she's getting under contract. So I'm really, Libby, like, I just want you to like tell us about yourself. Like, you see, she's got like kids in her hands, right? This girl, she's like, stay-at-home mom, working to get deals. She's working the foreclosures. She already got one. She made a $30,000 assignment fee. She's got a bunch more under contract, and man, I mean, she's just killing it. So I wanted her to come on and just kind of tell us a little bit about who she is and how she got started, and then also just kind of her step by step on, how she got her first deal and has continued to get more deals. So Libby, you are on.
Hey, thanks for having me on today. So yeah, you want to go inside? Okay. Have your sissy take you, okay?
Yeah.
No. So come here, baby. Come sit with me.
I know how it is. How old is she?
Sorry.
3 or 4?
Almost. She'll be 3 in November.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, can you get him?
Those little baby girls want what they want.
Yeah, she tripped out on the street, like literally
Oh,
right before. So,
poor baby.
anyway, so I am super excited to get to be here because we really have fought hard to find like the success that we've had this year. Okay, go ahead, baby. You need help? Okay. So we joined Sub2 in October of last year, and in December, Pace did this Do Your First Deal challenge. I think he's done it a handful of times before that too, so it's not really anything new. It was just new to us. And during that, you got to kind of pair up with leaders in the community and learn from them, right? So I reached out to a couple of different leaders and I plugged into a team, and this team was like people who didn't already have a team set up. So we were all kind of flying by the seat of our pants and all learning together. And their strategy and my strategy were actually very different because they were utilizing a cold caller to generate leads. And then we were taking those leads and following up on them, managing them, and trying to close them.
Oh, wow. How was that?
It's been quite the learning experience for everybody. So she does a great job. Dylan, so it's Dylan and Paige Kubacher. I don't know if you've come across their names, but they're out in Wyoming. And we were just like building our systems and processes through the whole time. So we were doing meetings Monday through Thursday in the evenings, and just like daily training with his cold caller, was like constantly on the phone with her, listening to her calls and giving her feedback. And she is like a killer on the phones now because he put in like months of training with her.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyways, they were doing that, and I was working on improving my ability to talk to sellers and just learning a lot and getting a lot of feedback and opportunity. And oh, not that one? Okay. And so it took a long time for us to get a deal. And I think like the one thing that I wish somebody, which one do you want? Which one do you want?
Yeah.
What? Okay, give me 1 second.
So she's talking about Pace Morby, which I think a lot of you have found me through Pace Morby, actually. He does all these challenges where he'll hook you into a team and you can kind of learn the whole wholesaling processes. And he's actually doing one. It's called the No Person Left Behind. So he's about to launch another one. So she's saying that she got her start. So if you're like, I have no idea how to talk to seller, I have no idea how to find a deal, um, I even recommend this to people. Like a good way is to plug into someone else's team, and that's kind of what Pace does, is he sets up these teams of people, and then you plug in where you feel like your power is, right? And then you can learn how to talk to sellers and wholesale deals. So that's what she's talking about.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
So I'm still plugged into that team. We've shifted from them being like leaders of the team to us being more of partners now that things are starting to take off in like every part of our business, right? So
So
one
how
thing
did that, like, how did you, so when you started, you guys, when you had your evening, like your evening meetings, were everybody on the team on the meetings while you were listening to him train his cold caller?
So we would do our team meeting, and then after the team meeting, he would stay on with the cold caller. So our cold caller was a part of our team meetings and still is.
How many people are on your team?
So Dylan and Paige, they're a couple. They're like the leaders of the team. And then we have our cold caller, Danny, and then it's me and Derek. And Derek's actually in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, too. So that was interesting that someone else here.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. He just moved there, though. He was previously in Illinois. And he's a licensed realtor, and Paige is a licensed realtor. And
so your cold caller, where'd you get her from? Is that what you got from, did you get one from Start Virtual?
No, she's not from Start Virtual, but she is from the Philippines.
Okay.
And I found it. So she is from the Philippines. She's wonderful. But I don't remember exactly what website. He vetted her like really, really heavily. But she's very, very good. And we actually recently just expanded our team. So he got another virtual assistant that does our like transaction coordination. So
Yeah.
when we're ready for a purchase agreement, she plugs all of that in and sends it to us and to the seller and like on DocuSign. And then she will send it to the title company, and then she touches base with the title company like on a weekly basis to make sure that there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
And I've had a hard time letting go of like staying in touch with the title company.
Because you were kind of that person.
Yeah.
Okay, so first to go back to this cold caller, like where were you guys pulling lists from, and where was where were they, what were they feeding her to call? How many names?
Yeah. So they were just feeding her all sorts of stuff, like just random lists, like spaghetti on a wall, like just pulling random stuff, vacant absentee lists. They have what they call their base list. So like everything in their chosen markets in Wyoming. They pulled every single property in there. And they weren't like cold calling that, but they have it in their database.
Okay.
And they were just one of the lists that they pulled. So they're looking for a new primary residence. And this is more recent, but they've decided that they're looking for a new primary residence to do like a live and flip on. And so like a list that they pulled was literally just like houses that had more than a specific amount of square footage, had more than like 3 bedrooms, more than 2 bathrooms, like literally just a super vague list.
Okay.
And
And
actually
so
we got,
as those leads were coming in
Mhm.
from the cold caller, you were taking them, you and Derek.
Yeah. So Derek and I were taking them, and then we would filter through them. So we would set them whether they were like hot, warm, cold, or not interested. So one of the things that we were working on is like qualifying or disqualifying leads. So some of the leads that we would get in weren't really leads.
Right.
And so going through that process, and we had a lot of things that looked like they were going to turn into deals and just wouldn't convert. And one that we closed relatively recently, I believe it was last month that we closed it, was a lead that I got in March. And he was all ready to sell. He had this property. It was like a trailer on a lot that he owned, and it had been vacant for like 10 years. There were holes in the roof, holes in the floor, like the thing was a mess. And he was like, I'm ready to sell it. We were like, great. So we underwrote it and we gave him an offer. And he was like, sure, that's more than I thought I was going to get for it. I'm good with that. So I think we had offered him like $11,000, if I remember correctly. And he was ready to move forward. Well, then literally not even 24 hours after he had verbally accepted our offer, and we were just trying to figure out how to get him a purchase agreement because he didn't have a computer, he didn't have internet, he didn't have a cell phone, and we didn't have anybody who lived. So the property was in our market, like in the Wyoming area, but he was in Colorado. And we were trying to coordinate with boots on the ground to get a purchase agreement to his door so he could sign it. And in the 24 hours it took us to coordinate that, apparently his pastor came out of the woodworks and was like, hey, I'll buy that property for $20,000.
Oh,
What do we
yeah.
do here?
Oh,
Like,
that
first off, we couldn't,
happens. Yeah, that
yeah, we couldn't
happened.
compete on price,
So
but
that
I
was the
mean, we
first
also,
deal that you got accepted, is what you're saying?
well, so this was, I guess it's kind of a funny story because at the time we told him, kind of had given him a lot of warnings about whether the pastor was going to be able to perform or not. And, just followed up with him. I followed up with him since March, and we just closed the deal ourselves. So what happened is through all of that following up, eventually the guy was like, hey, my pastor cannot perform on this. We've canceled our contract and I'm ready to move forward with you. And we actually ended up closing that deal with an $18,500 assignment for our team from just
Amazing.
months of following up. So even though
Yeah.
it seems like a dead lead, and a lot of people would have just dropped it and not continued to follow it up,
Yep.
because we stayed on top of it and we had built really good rapport, we were able to close the deal. And
Yeah.
so it worked out really good, but it's just a good case study so that people know, even if it seems like it's lost, it's not lost until the deal has officially closed.
That's
So
amazing. I love that because, I have a mentor, and that's one of the things that she always says, that like 30% of her deals come from stuff like that. Like literally, it happens all the time. A neighbor's going to buy it, a friend's going to buy it. 90% of the time they don't close. Now, 10% of the time they do. 90% of the time they don't.
yeah.
Or even if someone comes in higher than you, right? Even though you have a pretty good price, a lot of times those people don't close, right? And so you want to be there. We actually just got on the phone today with a seller who was under contract twice for a price, right? The first one was 280, the second one was 240. And we just got on the phone with her today and we're locking it up for what we originally offered her, and she turned us down, but we stayed on it for 190. Right? So like every time they would try to come in and negotiate her down, she wouldn't do it. So anyways, that's great. So okay, so the leads are coming in. from the cold caller, and you and Derek are taking them. And so how long did it take you to get your first deal? Like how many leads were coming in that you had to follow up with?
Yeah, so we were turning out not a ton of leads, maybe like 5 leads or so a week. So at first it was like, it felt like we were kind of twiddling our thumbs. We were like, what do we do? Like, we
Five
don't have
leads a
enough in
week, you
our,
said?
yeah.
Okay.
But, and you have to remember, we were kind of still teaching Danny at that point what a qualified and disqualified lead were. So 5 leads that she was submitting, but not necessarily 5 truly motivated or qualified. And we were also learning how to qualify and unqualify leads. And so there was definitely a lot of time kind of spent on people that should not have been in our pipeline.
Yeah.
And so now we're working on cleaning that out. But in addition to her turning out leads, we, I should say my husband and I, in January, we were like, I had been door knocking previously, pre-foreclosures, but just pre-foreclosures that were set to go to the sheriff's sale. And I was finding over and over again the same thing, that there just was like no equity and not quite enough time to make it to enough doors, because I could only door knock on Saturday and Sunday, because I had a baby and my husband worked a W-2, and it was like, when can I possibly go? And so I was like, well, I can go every Saturday and Sunday. So I would go for 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday. And I could hit about 16 doors between the 2 days, which is still not very much. But anyway, so I was knocking sheriff sale houses, and I just was running into the same situation over and over again. And I finally told my husband, I was like, we have to figure this out. Like, there is a way to get this information before they go to the sheriff's sale. And I was like, I don't know how, but I know it's public information. Like, we've got to figure this out. So we spent all of January going to like the county clerk's office and making phone calls and calling the sheriff and like researching and just becoming like a professional at foreclosures in our state and learning the process. And finally,
How long did that take?
like the whole month of January, like the whole month. And we've learned a lot over the last several months in addition to that. But like by the end of January, we had finally figured out how to get our foreclosure data when the foreclosure is first filed. So in some states, they would call it like a Liz Pen or a notice of default. It's all just called a mortgage foreclosure up here, but that's kind of like the stage it would be in. So we get them the moment that they're first filed. And that has really given us a significant advantage up here. And so those are the deals that I'm like posting and closing the most is.
So are you doing that separate from your team?
So at first I was doing it completely separate from my team and just like talking to them for advice or insight or feedback. And they weren't asking for any like cut of those deals, even though they were helping me with them. Now that we've moved it from kind of like them being the leaders to us being partners, I have moved or migrated. I used to keep everything in like a Google Sheets document, and just have everything was like very low cost, very basic, and very minimal. And it was plenty, like definitely handled everything that we needed. But now that we've moved into a partnership, I've migrated all of my leads and all of my data scraping into their CRM, and I use all of their software and stuff. And then our TC handles all of my contracts, unless it's a contract that I do in person. And so we've shifted just a little bit because it's very hard to stay on top of things as a busy mom. But I remember so it took us about 6 months to get our first deal closed.
With the cold
No,
caller or on your own?
on my own. But with the we didn't close any deals as a team until August. But we went from closing no deals to closing 4 deals in the same month.
Yeah. So, and that is actually exactly a cash conversion cycle for a cold caller. It's 9 to 11 months. So it's not that cold callers don't work. They do, but it's the cash conversion cycle of 9 to 11 months. So if you come into this thinking I'm going to close a deal in 6 months with one cold caller, you are going to quit right before you ever get a deal. So you have to come into it knowing, and not only that, but you can't just like set your cold caller loose. It's like what you said, hours and hours and hours and hours of training. And
Yeah.
so it's not that it doesn't work, it does. But it's like you said, there's got to be consistency, there's got to be training. I mean, this is a business, right? Like if you want to stay in the business, you got to be in it for the long haul. You got to be ready not to close a deal for at least 9 months.
Yeah.
That is tough, right? So that is but now it's not just one deal, it's multiple deals. And now all the deals are starting to close, right? Like you're getting a bunch of leads in from her and starting to close more deals. But in the meantime, you did the fastest cash conversion cycle in the business is door knocking and calling pre-foreclosures, right? So like that's the fastest cash conversion cycle. So you kind of use that to carry you along. See you later, Ronnie. I think she said she had to drop. That was like 5 minutes ago. I love that. Okay. So it took you until August, and now you guys are getting deals from your cold caller all the time.
Yeah. Um, so, and a lot of it is from leads that she submitted earlier in the season that just weren't quite hot enough or motivated. And I had heard somebody say like, time is the ultimate negotiator. That's definitely holding true for us, and just knowing when to hold firm, kind of like what you said with the deal that you guys have been working on. Just knowing what numbers make sense and sticking to those numbers and not being like, not changing the numbers on a deal to accommodate the seller.
Yeah. Like somebody's like, oh, I got an offer for 123. And you're like, I'll give you 125. Like, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
Okay. So when you started, you started scrubbing, took the whole month of January. And then once you got those like that hot list, you started calling that on your own
Yeah. So
or
I
door
have
knocking that.
so I was doing both.
Okay.
So I got like a Google Voice phone number, and I was calling and texting them, and door knocking them as much as I possibly could. And again, none of this was fancy. I was using Google Sheets. I have like a CRM that I built out in Google Sheets, and I have shared that with a ton of people. So if you're needing a way to keep your leads organized, I'm happy to share that to you as a resource. And then I was using Google Maps for my routing. So in Google Maps, you can literally just make like a map that has pin drops on it. So I would upload my CSV file with all my properties for that quarter into a Google Maps, and I would like pick which properties I was going to, like pick a cluster and like route myself and send the route to my email address and just like hit the road. And I was door knocking, and I just remember like constantly saying like, all these YouTube videos say that you can get a deal in 90 days if you're consistent and you're doing action. And I'm like, I am spending like 1 to 4 hours, 7 days a week on this, trying to make something happen. And I didn't get my first property under contract until I had been taking action for 6 months, and it didn't close until 7 months. So I closed my first deal on my birthday.
Aw. So it took you so you got under contract at 6 months, closed it at 7 months of the door knocking. And then
Yes,
your
from
cold
4 months.
calling was October, basically well, no, you started in December all the way to August.
Yep.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So then you got your first deal in like, what's your birthday? July?
July. Yeah, July
July what?
15th.
Mine's July 10th.
Oh,
So July 15th, you signed your first deal. And then in August, you signed another deal. And now how many deals have you done
that's a good question.
between
So
July and now it's October?
I've closed 3 deals completely. Well, I've got 2 deals that I've fully closed myself. I've got 1 deal that will close on October 11th, and another one that I don't know what's going to happen with it because the seller, I filed a memorandum on it. So the seller has tried to sell to 2 other people since signing with me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's just a little bit of a mess. She's super
Yeah.
unstable, and like I think there's a drinking problem and maybe some drugs involved. And
Yeah.
but the property was set to be a $25,000 assignment. And I have a memorandum filed on it, and I was the first purchase agreement that she had signed. So I'm just waiting for someone to try to get it to the closing table. I know which title company she's opened at.
Yeah.
I already called and let them know that I have a memorandum filed on it. So hopefully
Yeah.
we'll still see some kind of profit off of the deal, whether we close it or not. But my buyer that I had assigned to it said that if it comes available again, he would like to still purchase it. So I still
Cool.
have a buyer for it. Actually, I have 2 buyers for it in case the other buyer backs out.
I mean, how life-changing is it to have gotten those 3 deals on your own?
Oh, it's so life-changing. So
I
the
mean,
first one,
the first one you made 30, right? And then what'd you
so
make?
my first one I made 4,000. So the first one I did like 4,000 on it, and I actually haven't done a $30,000 assignment. So I did one that was 22,500,
Okay.
and then hold on. So I did one that was 22,500. My first one was actually like 4,000 and some change. Here, buddy. You don't want that now. So the first one was 4,000 and some change. And that one actually was really disappointing because I was so excited to get it under contract, and I thought it was going to be like a $12,000 assignment. But the way that I wrote the contract, because I knew that the purchase price and the judgment on the property, it was going to be really close. And I had heard that if you didn't write your purchase price correctly and it didn't cover the amount like for the payoff, that it wouldn't work, right? And so I was like super stressed about it, and I wrote the price as payoff plus $5,000 to seller. And just based on my like 2 seconds of research before I went to the property, yes, buddy. I thought that his payoff was only going to be like $60,000, and it ended up being $68,000. And then he had over $5,000 in liens on the property. And
You
so I
said
got on
you'd
the
cover
phone.
the liens in your purchase agreement.
Well, so the way that the title company read it is they read it that the $5,000 that he was supposed to get past the payoff would go towards his liens. And so I'm kind of grateful that that worked out that way. But I got on the phone with the seller. We negotiated his liens down so he would walk away with some money. But with the payoff coming back as high as it did, instead of making the 12,000-ish dollars that I thought I was going to make on the property, I ended up walking away with $4,000. And it sucked a little bit when I found out that it was going to be much slower than we had expected. but at the same time, I was really grateful. So we were really helping a family. The guy was living in this house. The ceiling was like falling down from water damage from his bathtub. He had an 11-year-old daughter who was with him part-time, and the house was absolutely infested with mice.
Oh,
There
wow.
was like mouse feces everywhere. And then he had gotten these two little dogs from his ex-wife. The ex-wife was no longer allowed to keep the dogs because she was living with her mom, and the mom hated the dogs. And so he ended up with these two little yappy dogs, and he just wouldn't take care of them. And so they were like pooping and peeing all over the house. And so like his 11-year-old daughter is living in these, it was just awful. It was really bad.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. I like sometimes, these assignment fees that are smaller, it's like you don't want to work for free, but you also get a good feeling of helping a seller. But a lot of times the seller goes back and gets right back into the same situation they were in if they don't deal with their problems. Okay, that's awesome. So now you guys are joined in on your team. So you're coming, like this is your 1 year anniversary of when you joined Sub2 and started in this journey. And I mean, I know I can say that same thing. It was, I think it took me, it was like the end of the fourth month, I got my first deal. It was I made $1,500 as an assignment fee. And then at the end of the year, I had made, almost over $200,000 in assignment fees by the end of year one. So,
Wow.
but those first 6 months are really, really, really hard, right? Those first 6 to 9 months. But just like your consistency. So I see like you're over there and you're busy because you've got those little ones and you had a baby too. About how much time do you spend in a week on this real estate gig? Like in a day, like what do your days look like and all that?
yeah, so I spend 1 to 4 hours, 7 days a week on our business. So like I mentioned, I still door knock Saturday and Sunday. I spend 3 to 4 hours. And that all started like my son was born in June of last year. So he's just a little over a year now. But at the time he was like a newborn, and we had just moved from Holland, Michigan to like the South Bend, Indiana area. So like we were in a new state, in a new city, with a newborn baby in a new house. It
Wow.
was like a lot going on. And I had told my husband, so from selling our house in Holland, we had extra money, and we kept saying like we'd like to invest it, but we don't know what to do. Yeah, you can have one of these. We were like, we don't know what to do with this money, and we were like scared to invest it in the wrong place. And I saw a video for like Pace's mentorship and looked at it and thought about it, and we did like a call, and I was like, this is what we need to do. Like I'm certain about it. And no, you don't need any more. And no, that's enough, buddy. And so, anyways, that's kind of like the position we were coming from, is we were like, we'd never really had a lot of money, and we came from families that didn't really have a lot of money, and like we were not financially literate, and we didn't know how to invest, and we were just really scared to like screw things up. But I like went to my husband and I was like, look, I know this is a lot to like put towards this, but I know it will change our lives. Like this is definitely the thing that we need to be doing. And the reason behind it, okay, was because we had this dream, and still do, that we want to develop an agri-hood centered around regenerative agriculture. No, not another one. And so we were trying to figure out how we were going to go from people who don't have a lot of money and no experience developing anything. And we're not farmers. We don't have like a good farming background. We were like, okay, so how do we go from like regular old Joes that live in the city to like developing an agrihood? And when I saw the mentorship, like a light bulb went off. I was like, this is it. This is where we'll get our connections and our like skills and the capital. And like this is everything we were missing. And so that was a big part of it. I'm so sorry.
Wow, no worries. No worries. I know. You don't have to get on here anymore. I mean, maybe somebody wants to ask you a question. Does anybody want to ask Libby any questions or have any questions for her?
Hey, Libby, is Indiana a judicial or non-judicial state?
Yeah, so Indiana is a judicial state. So what we found in Indiana is we're able to scrape foreclosure data for any county using our state's court search system. So if you're in a judicial state, it's something that I would recommend looking into, seeing if your state has a state court case search system. And if so, you want to figure out what their numbering system is for that. And if you can figure that out, you can figure out how to search those foreclosure filings as soon as they're filed.
Yeah, that's what I do here. Are you going after the notice of default or list pendants right away?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we target it kind of twofold. So what we do is we pull the data as soon as it's filed, and then when the sheriff sales are posted, we still go after those. But because we know that we've gone after them at the beginning of the filing, they remember who we are.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
So basically, basically 3 points of contact whenever they initially get filed, whenever they get posted an auction date, and kind of right before the auction, right?
Yeah. So
I mean, I'm
goal is
sure
to
you
always-
guys follow up even more than that though, right? Like you're calling them all the time.
Yeah. So we aim to door knock them at least 3 times during that whole process or that time period. And in between that, we're cold calling and texting them. And now that we have some more capital to market with, we're starting to implement some, well, I should say more capital as well as just like more experience and better systems in place. We're starting to build out some email marketing channels and starting to send out some mail, because we're getting our foreclosure leads so early. We actually have time to do a mail campaign on them. Whereas if we were doing them just from the sheriff's sale, we wouldn't have that kind of time.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love that.
Yeah. But
man, I'm so happy for you. That is so awesome. And you've worked so hard. And I'm just like, you know, I think that when you're first starting out, the only way that you are, there's not many people that are going to survive in this business, but you don't have to. She's like, we're regular old Joes that don't come from money, that have no money. So she changed how she thought about it. Like, I have to change from the inside out. And I mean, she's special because she's Libby, but like, she's just like, I'm always like, there's nothing special about me necessarily. I just worked every day to figure it out. Right. And it will work if you just are working every single day to figure it out. And it can be absolutely life changing. I love that for you. And now you've hustled for a year, right? And you've learned all the things. So you've been hustling. And I always say this, like, there's a time in your business where you feel these growing pains of, okay, now I have to start figuring out how to make this an actual legitimate business, which is what you did, right? Like, now you've been with this team, you guys have been hustling, and now you're working towards making this a legitimate business, which is super awesome. So Libby, you probably can't see the chat, but Liza asked if she could have your CRM. So Maybe you guys can find each other on school and do a private message, or maybe you could post it up on the school, whatever you want to do. But somebody definitely was interested in your CRM.
Yeah, so I'll make a post in our school group, and just link the Google sheet there. So as long as people make a copy of it, it should be good. But yeah, I've shared it with a lot of people. A lot of people have really liked it. It's very clean. And then I've got other resources that I have built out for our team, or for myself, like a Loom video on how I route myself and do that Google map that I mentioned.
Wow.
Or like the seller personality types, like they talk about red sellers, yellow sellers, that kind of deal. I have like a little sheet. I come from like a teaching background, so
That's awesome.
I have like a little handout that has like the seller personality types and how to kind of tailor your approach to each seller personality type, what they need from you in order for you to be effective. And so it's like what you can
Awesome.
expect too from like a red or a yellow or a green or a blue seller. So I'll post some of those things in the school group and share that with people. But I did want to say, like, the one thing that I wish someone had told me when we got started is kind of what you have touched on, that like you should just set your expectations to not get a deal for at least the whole first year of marketing. You'll probably get one before then, but like if your expectation is that you're going to market and do work for a whole year and you're going to get nothing in return during that year, but you'll like it will compound. You'll get a lot later. I think that would have
Right.
made it a
And if
little.
you're super consistent, like it's not when one deal comes, then a bunch of deals come. Has that not been your experience?
Yeah,
That has
that's
been right.
definitely,
That's
it's like
how
a
I felt. That
snowball.
I always say that. I'm like, it took me this long to get a deal, but then like the deals never stopped since. But I also never stopped working, right? Like when the day I started working on this, I have not stopped. I've been relentless, and the deals have never stopped, right? And they just get more and more and more and more and more as you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So because I just remember like being 3 months in and like 4 months and 5 months, like all the way up to that first contract, and just being like comparing myself to other people and being like, man, these people are doing deals. These people are doing deals. Like, am I not doing enough? And I knew like I had a new baby. We were in a house. I'm homeschooling. Like, I only have so much time, and my husband was supporting me in that, like, if I needed extra help, like getting a meal on the table or cleaning up at the end of the night, or if I needed him to take the kids for a couple hours so I could make calls, like he was super supportive and very kind and patient and understanding through all of that. But like he was not doing the business with me. So he's getting ready to quit his job at the end of October to do real estate full time with me, which is very exciting. But
Wow.
yeah,
Congratulations.
and up until like this past month or so, like he has been like, I will support you so that you can do the work, but like I'm tired from doing my full-time job. So like I'll come home and take care of the family and you can work, but I'm not going to plug into the business at this stage. He was like, I will in the future, but like I don't have the mental capacity to do that and help with the family and do my job. He was like you'd have to pick. Do you want me to help with the family, or do you want me to work my job and come home and do this? So, it's been good to have his support. But yeah, there was like a ton of self-doubt leading up to getting that first deal about like if I was worthy enough or good enough, or if I was doing enough, or like sometimes I remember telling my team one time, like, is this even a real thing? Like, is this just something that like gurus are out here pretending is a real thing and people are saying that they're doing deals, but like no one's actually doing deals? They're just trying to like get these newbies out here, like keep them busy so that like we're
Yeah.
not competing against them or something. And I was like, is this like, am I crazy? Um, but then once we did that first deal and we started to like get more properties under contract,
You're
and like
like,
there were just,
oh, this is easier than I thought.
yeah,
Just
and I
kidding.
think there was like this big shift too, because I kept telling myself, like, the things that I'm doing are so simple that there's no way you can make money doing this. And the truth is like, yes, it's simple, but simple and easy are not the same thing. And I had a really, really hard time with that. So I was like, anybody can do this. Like, this is just so simple. But because you have to do it for so long and you don't get the results as quickly as we're used to being in this like instant gratification world,
Mm-hmm.
that's why people don't make it in this business. So like having that mindset that you're going to commit to doing at least a year's worth of work with no payoff, I think that would have been really helpful because there were so many times. But like I said, just having that team, being plugged into a community, and being around successful people and having my team behind me, like even though we weren't closing deals, they were showing up every day. So I knew I had to show up every day.
Yeah.
And just like having that support, like I'm not sure that we would be here if it weren't for those two things, right? So like when April's on here and she's talking about like, don't do deals by yourself. Like she's 100% right, because even though those deals, I in a sense did them on my own in that I was pulling the data myself and I was door knocking them myself, I didn't actually do those deals myself. And actually the deal that we just assigned that's posted in the school community, I'm in another school community that's just for my local market. It's called Elevate. And the deal that I just assigned will have 3 other people from that community in that deal. So
Wow.
me as the wholesaler, and then Jake Winters, these names probably won't mean anything to you, but he's the buyer. And then Angela Hill owns a like design company, and one of her subcontractors will be like taking the lead on the project. And so there's 4
Wow.
community
I
members there
love
that are
that.
taking part in that. And so that was like a huge win for us. But like it just goes to show like the things that these people are saying, right? Like think about how many people are getting paid on this project and how many like families are being affected, and like the family that we're helping even. So it's definitely
Yeah.
really cool to get to be a part of something like that.
Yeah. And, I think it's kind of like, I don't ever mean to like discourage people from doing this. I try to encourage people to do it, but I also try not to be like, yeah, get into this, do that, because I don't want to be like one of those gurus. Like, and I'm not saying I'm a guru, but I don't want to be one of those people that is just telling anybody and everybody to do it, right? Like, it's a business. And honestly, like a year isn't even really that long. They even say that in restaurants. If you can make it the first year, you can make it, right? It's the same thing here. If you can make it the first year, then you can make it in this business, but you have to make it through the first year. And I think that goes for any business. And I don't think that people realize like, we're building a business, right? This is active income, right? That, if you want to get into real estate and you're trying to create passive income, this ain't it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't do this. But this is active income. This is a business. It's an awesome business. I absolutely love it. And for all the reasons that you said. But it's not easy. And you have to be in it for the long haul. So that's so awesome. Thank you so much. I loved every part of your story, and I really feel like you need to be telling a lot of this story to a lot of people. So I hope you're getting on your social media and talking on your social media, as uncomfortable as it might be, and telling people your story, because it's an awesome story, and I'm just like so glad that you're in our community and that you got to share with us today. So thank you.
Yeah.
And with your hands, like, I mean, you're like over there, every 2 seconds, your kids need something. And it's just, that's such a mom, right? Like every 2 seconds, somebody needs something. And you got little ones. At least
Yeah.
like mine are, well, I started when mine were 3, 2, and 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
So, but luckily it was COVID. I mean, not like lucky COVID, but Mark was home And so we were able to do a lot of switcheroo because he was home, which really helped. Whereas like you don't, right? Like you're, I guess he's at work and then he comes home and then you do the switcheroo when he comes home.
Yeah.
But you just make it work, however it is. And I love the way you put it, that it's simple, not easy, right? That's perfect. I love that. So simple, not easy. But all right, well, we're 5 minutes past. I'm sure Libby actually has her phone number right up there, the 574-208-3946. I'm sure she would not care if you reached out to her to ask her any questions about her business or how she gets those hot leads directly from the county, or anything else like her CRM. I mean, she just dropped some massive value in this Zoom today, and I loved it. It's been my favorite Zoom yet because I didn't do all the talking. You did, and I loved your story. Okay, so yeah, love you guys, and I will see you next Monday for the Monday Motivation Zoom. And don't forget to keep dropping your deals and your wins inside the group. So thank you so much for coming. We'll see you guys next week. Libby, you're awesome. Bye,
Bye, guys.
guys. Hi, my name is April Giuliano. Right here is where you will learn all things real estate and how to juggle being a mom and entrepreneur. Don't forget to like and subscribe.